I'm listening to the 70s and that comes on, and I'm like, I will listen to CNN before I listen to that. I will listen
There
to
are
her.
worse songs. I'm Not Lisa was another one. My name is Julie.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that was horrible.
Okay.
Fine.
It's time to wax eloquent.
We're waxing eloquent. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Three Guys Who Love Sports. My name is Chuck Burrs, and we are here at Red Hair Brewery out on Delk Industrial Boulevard. Love for you to come by and join us and share some sports stories with us. Today, I am joined by Mr. Mike Van Pelt. Mike's first time with us today. And an oldie but a goodie, Mr. David Griffith. David, welcome back.
I'm not that old.
Haven't seen you in a while.
I know. It's been the way you treated me last time.
Well, it's good. Well, thank you for giving me and for coming back. All right. So we are Three Guys Who Love Sports, and as we talk all the time, this show is for gentlemen that are going through some tough times, be it prostate cancer or liver transplants or whatever issue you might have. We want to help take your mind off of what's going on in the world for just an hour a week, and if we help, then God bless us, right? So we want to hear from you too, and you're welcome to text in at 470-7-SPORTS. That's 470-7-SPORTS or 470-777-6787 for you Georgia fans that can't read anything but numbers. 470-777-6787.
All we do is win.
All they do is win. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into some interesting subjects this week. The first one is golf. How many of you watched the PGA?
Oh, me.
Did you watch it?
Yeah,
Did you watch it?
All right, average golf fan.
So
Absolutely.
I got my PGA shirt on that Chip gave me a couple of years ago from Quail Hollow. Pretty good collapse on the last hole. Hit 3-wood and get to the green, 2-putt, and win the championship, right?
Yeah, painful.
What is it? Mino Pereira?
Yeah.
Is that who it is? Mino. So, where do you think that ranks on the great collapses of golf in history, in the majors' history?
Well, I mean, it's right up there, but yeah, you got Scott Hook. Yeah.
I don't remember Scott Hook.
Scott Hook at the Masters missed an 18-inch putt to win the Masters.
Yeah.
And then lost in the playoff.
Yeah.
So.
But missing an 18-inch putt, I mean, that's pretty bad, but it's not blowing a 20-stroke lead or anything.
Well, he didn't have a 20-stroke lead. He had a 1-stroke lead going into.
That's more John Vandervelde.
Jean Van de Velde.
But Vanderbilt even,
He is the greatest, and we will get to John, but there are others.
Vanderbilt could have made bogey and got into a playoff. He made double bogey.
No, he could have made double bogey. He had a 3-stroke lead going into the last hole.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he could have made bogey and got into the playoff. Double bogey. He could have made double bogey. He made 7. That's what I'm saying. He could have made double bogey. That's right.
He could have made double bogey and won without going to the playoff.
Right.
But he wound up going with Paul Lowry. Is that who it was?
Well, but Norman.
Yeah,
you
Greg
want to talk
Norman.
about that? Greg Norman goes into the last round of the Masters with a
6-stroke lead.
And
by the 11th hole, it's gone.
And he shoots 78.
Yeah.
And Nick Price, wins it by 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty wild, it was.
I feel like, given Greg Norman's skill level, that was a pretty big collapse. He somebody that's that good in his prime should have closed it out.
Listen, that year he won 7 golf tournaments.
Yeah.
That year he won 7 golf tournaments.
How many of them were before the Masters? Do you know?
Well, I think he won 2 before the Masters, and he won 5
after.
But he was at his prime. To your point,
yeah,
he was fantastic. But he had another collapse there. 1986, Nicklaus wins the Masters that year with a 30 on the back 9, right?
Yep.
Nicklaus is in the clubhouse at 9 under, and Norman is coming up the 18th fairway, hits a beautiful drive, and he's 9 under. All he has to do is par to go to a playoff, birdie to win, and he puts a 5-iron in the gallery.
Yeah.
And makes bogey on the
right side or left side?
Right side.
Right.
Yeah. So he sprays a 5-iron in the gallery right, pitches up to about 8 feet and misses. On that same hole, Tom Kite, he had an 8-foot putt for a birdie that would have taken him to 9 under and got into a playoff.
Yeah.
So
it's
not a collapse, but it's golf. Golf is hard, guys. Let's just admit it. Golf is hard.
Somebody asked me the other day what I think there was on some what do you call them, polls online or something. What do you think the hardest sport to be good at is? And I said golf. It's got to be golf, right? It's the only one that relies only on you. Like, unless you count bowling. I don't want to count bowling as a golf sport. But golf it's a tough sport to play. I used to be an average golfer, but it's very difficult. You've played with me.
I have played with you.
And
you used to be an average golfer.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm not anymore.
Well, you're worse than an average golfer?
I would say now, but you can't play golf. To my point, you can't play golf 4 or 5 times a year and be good, like David.
I think that of all the sports I play, golf is easily the most difficult because it not only requires just physical skill, it's mental skill, which is essentially what we're talking about here, because you saw a golfer this weekend lead virtually throughout the tournament or be right there and just had a bad mental moment on the 18th tee when essentially all he needed to do was pull out a 3-wood, knock it down the fairway, and, at least, worst case scenario, put himself in position for a playoff, which he actually, I don't think he would have known at the time, but you can't pull out driver in that situation where water's in play.
Well, I think they said the day before, the third round, he hit the driver.
He had hit his driver for 4 days.
It's a completely different set of circumstances, though. You're talking about closing the deal, and let's face it, we see this in sports all the time. Some guys are closers, some guys aren't.
Golf comes down to which club you feel most confident in your hand at that moment.
Yeah.
He felt confident with a driver in his hand, but he put. If you go back and look at what, even when he was hitting that stinger, he never over-rotated like he did with that stroke.
Yeah.
He totally lost his mind in the middle of the downswing, and it happens in major competition golf.
To Mike's point, that's the pressure, right?
Yes.
He's never led a major. He probably hadn't won a tournament before, has he?
No. So he won 3 tournaments last year on the Corn Ferry Tour.
That's right. Yeah.
That gave him an exemption, and he comes into his first major he's ever played in, and he's just hoping to make the cut.
That's what he said in the post round interview.
And now he's standing on the 72nd hole with a chance to win the thing.
Yeah.
And he buckled, and it happens. But again, I think he's a strong enough player that he'll learn from it.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do is learn from it. And to your point, you come out one day. The reason golf is so hard. You come out one day, and maybe this is sports in general. You come out one day and you're firing everything at the pin, and you're just making great ball contact, and you're compressing everything, and you just can do whatever you want. The next day you come out thinking, I played great yesterday, I'm going to play better today, and you're spraying everything.
Yeah.
And you think it's the same darn swing that you've had for 50 years, like for me.
Isn't it Rory McIlroy? I mean, that's what he did Friday and Saturday.
Exactly.
Or Thursday and Friday. So he came out and shot a 4-under or a 5-under on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then the next day he couldn't hit the broadside of a bar.
You couldn't.
Look at it this way. Justin Thomas ultimately wins the tournament, and he shanked a tee shot in the final round.
Yeah.
He looked like me,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest.
Who's
On
younger?
one shot.
He's a lot younger.
Well, yeah, he is. But, that's a whole other thing, that I can't put myself in the position of, which is, what would it feel like to be looking at the score? You're leading a golf tournament, and you're looking at the scoreboard, and he can look to see Justin Thomas is breathing down his neck, right?
Yeah.
He can see that some of these more experienced guys are riding his tail, and he just didn't think.
But Justin Thomas was really the only one out there. The other 4 in contention had not won a major, right? Or not won a tournament.
No.
Like Will Zalatoris. Will Zalatoris was out there?
Young.
Yeah. Cameron Young?
Yeah, Cameron Young.
Yeah.
I mean, that kid, he also crashed double bogey on the 16th. And he was at 5. He would have been in the playoff had he just parred out.
Yeah, those two guys, though, it's a matter of time before they win a major.
Yeah,
I mean,
those guys are
really,
great ball
two.
strikers. Zalatoris.
Zalatoris is a ball striker.
Zalatoris
Yeah.
and Young both. Yeah. I mean, it does come down to the mental side of the game, I think.
Yeah.
And to me, the psychology and meaning, what is your psyche all about? You've got people, as you look back in golf history, who had a killer instinct. I mean, look at Tiger. Look at
Tiger.
Nicklaus. They loved majors.
Yeah.
Nicklaus once said, I already felt like I beat half the field because they were afraid of the major,
Yeah.
and I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So he felt like he had beaten
Makes a lot of
That's why he
sense.
finished 18 majors. He won them and 19 runner-up finishes.
Yeah.
I think you have to embrace that atmosphere.
And not everybody can.
Not everybody can, and just the challenge of the elements involved in it. It's not just the atmosphere; it's the course setup and everything that's going on. And some of those guys are just incredibly mentally strong athletes, and that's what separates the elite from the average.
From the average golf.
Yeah.
Were you guys surprised by this course and the scoring on this course? I mean, it didn't have the big rough to hold scoring down.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that the scoring was not 15, 16, 17 under on this course.
Yeah.
It must have been really, really, really difficult.
I think it was the weather. The thing that
first couple of days, the wind and stuff.
Yeah,
like
the
that.
wind.
Yeah.
The course just didn't look that difficult to me.
No,
but it
it
was
didn't.
eating everybody's lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the wind, like at Augusta National, there's never a flat lie. I don't know what it was like in terms of that.
I don't think there were any flat lies there. There certainly weren't any flat greens, flat putts.
And there's one more. You mentioned Tiger. What do you think about him withdrawing after the third round, after 79?
I thought it was wise.
Yeah, I do too.
Did you see him?
The video?
Did you see him coming off the practice green
Yeah.
and literally just his leg just
Yeah.
collapsed? He recovered and went down into the bunker and hit a few haphazard bunker shots. And
Yeah.
he was hurting.
Yeah,
He came. I really believe he came back.
that's what I was going to ask. Did he come back?
I think he did.
And
I think
That's
that's
the
just Tiger
competitor,
being
huh?
Tiger, right? I mean,
That's the competitor.
Yeah,
Competitor.
he's so competitive that
he wants to win so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll ever see it.
I don't think we will.
But-
But I will say this: I've said that time and time again.
Yeah.
And Tiger keeps coming back.
Well,
So
you said it probably only once,
no, probably twice.
maybe twice.
At least twice. I thought he was done.
He's good for the game.
He's
So,
good for the game.
I mean, he does create interest
he
still.
created all the money, in my opinion.
So here's an interesting thing that came out of the PGA. So John Daly said if Tiger could have had a cart, he wins the golf tournament. Now
Yeah,
how about that?
that's pretty strong statement.
John Daly just wants a card for his cooler. That's what he wants.
He's no Casey Martin, that's for sure.
You got to put your smokes someplace. Your smokes and drinks.
Smoke some drinks, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, but there's a okay. So this was Mito's first, major, right?
Yeah.
So John Daly gets
Yeah.
a call 2 days before the PGA. Hey, you're an alternate. Come on up. You're playing the PGA.
Yeah.
And he goes up there with his pink driver, and hits 400-yard bombs and wins the PGA Championship.
Yeah. Well, he actually led this one after one hole.
Did he?
Yeah, he was he birdied the first hole. He was in the lead. So,
come on now.
so there was one other great collapse that we talk about that occurred right here in Atlanta. Do you remember that? At the PGA at 2011 out at Atlanta Athletic Club, Jason Duffner had a 5-stroke lead.
Oh, that's right.
And Keegan Bradley, he dumped one in the water and it just stumped from there on. And then Keegan Bradley came back, beat him in the playoff, I think, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
I love the game of golf, man. I just don't think much about Jason Duffner.
Jason Duffner just looks like the Beaver to me. From Leave It to Beaver.
He does.
I always thought he looked like the Beaver.
Great guy. Great guy.
Seems to be. Yeah.
But I don't often think about him. He's just not
Not
one of those
anymore.
people that kind of
No.
is at the top of your
If,
golf.
if I had not done a little research, I would have forgotten about that. But I do remember Keegan Bradley winning it
Yeah.
because they talked about that some this
Well,
weekend.
Duff is one of these guys that shows up on the leaderboard about once a year. There's a whole variety of these guys that once a year, from out of nowhere. Now, since my last name is Van Pelt, I'll give you one. Bo Van Pelt.
I remember Bo Van Pelt.
And he, once a year shows up on the leaderboard, and I love it personally because that
He's your
always
brother?
gives me an opportunity to snap a picture of the leaderboard on television, and
Say, look, I'm in the lead.
I own it.
So,
And then he collapses.
so between Bo and you and Scott, none of you are related, right?
No, none of us are related.
All right.
Although I would like to say, since I'm on this world-renowned sports talk show, Scott Van Pelt, if you'd like to come on the True Man podcast, hey, come on.
Come
I'm
on.
inviting you on
Look at that.
the True Man podcast.
Look at that.
Just saying.
Hey, so here's a question around this whole, superstar type thing and this plethora.
I love that word.
Yeah.
It's a
You
good
don't
word.
often get to use
One
it
of
in a
my-
sentence, do you?
It's one of my favorites,
So,
actually.
Mine too.
This
Yeah.
plethora of really young stars on the PGA Tour. I think the tour is longing for another Tiger Woods.
Do you?
I
I think there's enough good players out there that they don't need it.
I don't know if there's always a need for rivalries and somebody to beat and somebody to dominate. I mean, during Tiger's era, he won 20, and during a 10-year stretch, he won 27%
Of the tournament.
of the tournaments he entered.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
That is unheard of. So we can all agree that John Van de Velde was the greatest collapse ever, right?
well,
3 holes going into the
No,
3 strokes going into the last time.
No, I'm taking Greg Norman.
Okay,
Oh.
I'll take Van de
I'm
Velde.
taking Greg Norman. That's 6-stroke lead,
Yeah.
and he's dominating the tournament. And
It's
I think
big.
he's number 2. I think he's right behind Van de Velde.
yeah, but we don't.
3 strokes, 1 hole. Yeah, I know you don't care. And speaking of don't care, I don't care if you get up and let Molly take your seat for a minute.
I'll
so
do that.
so we
I'll do
can.
that.
David will be back. Good golly, Miss Molly. How are you, Molly?
Thank you. Good, how are you?
Great. So Molly's back. Molly, did you watch the PGA tournament this weekend?
I did not.
Because your man Mark Calcabecchia? Is that what you mean?
Oh, yeah, it is.
I remember.
That is
Don't I
my
remember
guy.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, unfortunately, I didn't watch it this past weekend. We were kind of busy,
I know I haven't seen you since Splash.
which was not that long ago, it feels like.
I know it. A week.
No, yeah, we've had a lot going on. We have a lot coming up, too.
Well, please tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Saturday, June 11th, we have our 5K race coming up. Yeah, we're really excited about that one. So it'll be in downtown Marietta, 8 o'clock in the morning.
How many runners do you have, do you know?
Right now we have about 150. We're looking to double that hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Normally,
People getting ready for the Peachtree?
Yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
is actually a Peachtree qualifier this
Oh,
year
is it?
too.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
if you run the race, you can qualify for the Peachtree too.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Yeah. Only a couple of the races that are in the downtown Marietta area have that.
Have that qualifying status?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My question is, will you be serving beer during the
Oh,
run?
that's the most important question.
That's a good question,
Of
Mike.
course. So when you run in our races, naturally we give you a beer at the end of it.
That's
so,
excellent.
Yeah, so we'll have a big party at the end at the Still on the Square, our our location over there, and yeah, beers to be poured and races to be ran.
I may come out of retirement for that race.
Just for the beer?
yeah,
Yeah,
for the race.
it's really
I'll
fun.
do the race for
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good time. The first one that we had down there was last October, so it was nice and cold, like very cold that morning. So now we have a very hot one.
Yeah.
We can't get the temperature right.
Wouldn't it be nice if it was just like this today? Today's a perfect
If we
day to
had
run.
an overcast day, that would be perfect. And honestly, a little drizzle wouldn't be too bad either.
I always love running in the rain. I really do. I ran
Yeah.
cross country,
Yeah.
and I had my best races in the rain.
Yeah, and our party on the patio is always really fun in the rain too.
Is it cool?
Yeah.
Well, you got anything else going on, Molly? Or are you done with us?
That's pretty much it right now. I'm sure there's going to be more next week when we talk.
I look forward to it.
Okay.
Have a
sounds
good week.
Thanks, you too.
We'll get this other guy back in here. David, are you through with golf, or did you want to follow up with something before we move on? Because you seem like a little upset that Mike and I don't agree with you about Norman's
I feel
collapse.
like the Greg Norman thing's under his skin a little bit.
But you guys
I do
don't.
too.
You guys just don't know as much as I do. So it's irrelevant.
Well, that's probably true in some regards. But yeah, so you're happy with us being a Van de Velde collapse guy and you being a Norman guy? Well, like I said,
there's room for all kinds of opinions.
well, I love Greg Norman.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue who John Van de Velde was, so
True.
that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm fine. You guys
So
should stay over there. I'll stay over here. I got to separate myself.
So speaking of spats, there was a big one this week. How'd you like that segue? Was that good?
Did my wife call you?
No. Speaking of spats, there's a big one brewing out there in college football between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. And now even Steve Spurrier and Justin Thomas have jumped on the Bama bandwagon.
Really?
Yeah, have you not seen that?
No, I did not
Oh,
see
wow.
that.
So
So this is something I don't know as much about as you do.
There's one thing. That's what I'm saying.
We found it.
We found it. Yeah. So, how this all started? I think it was last Wednesday. Actually, while we were taking a week off because of illness, we Saban had a news conference. Business owners around Alabama, I think that's what it was, and he said that Texas A&M has bought every player that they have recruited.
For the recruiting
There's
class,
like 11.
the number one recruiting class. And
Yeah. And then the next day, Jimbo Fisher's saying, "Who do you think you are, God? You're the biggest narcissist, blah, blah, blah," and off the feud goes.
which is, by the way, an interesting thing for a college football coach at a D1 program to call another coach a narcissist.
Who he coached for
Right.
and with.
They're all narcissists.
Yeah,
They're all. I
Yeah.
mean, I think so, which is really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Spurrier said, "Did Saban say anything wrong?" He didn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. I don't know enough about Texas A&M. I know this. Since this spat, Alabama got a quarterback that had decommitted from Texas A&M, which I thought was pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can't remember the kid's name, but he decommitted in March from Texas A&M, and now he's going to Alabama.
He's probably making more money at Alabama.
Just well, that's the whole thing. I mean, who's right and who's wrong. They say that Texas A&M has $30 million set aside. $30 million for NIL.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. See, here's my take on this.
that's chump change at Alabama.
Yeah, so, the funny thing about it was Saban kind of started this whole thing months ago when he basically came out at a press conference and said, "You guys are all right with this, NIL thing?" And everybody was like, "Well, it kind of is what it is." And he went, "All right, well, my backup quarterback makes $1 million then." And what's interesting about it is I think in the end, this little spat turns out to be a good thing for the NCAA. The NCAA is a racket in and of itself. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the NCAA. Way back when I was involved in college sports, it was very clear to me that college athletes needed, more than lunch money on a weekly basis. And so now you've got this NIL deal. The problem with it is it's not regulated. They just kind of threw it out there to see what would stick. Well, the problem with it is the rich get richer. I mean, so the alumni at Alabama are going to give more money to their program than, let's say, the alumni at Kennesaw State. So the rich just get richer. And I think what these guys are pointing out in their argument is that just this whole inequality of this whole thing across the board. Because if I'm a good football player and I can make a ton of money going to a big school like A&M or Alabama or Clemson or Georgia, well, I'm going to try to get in there. And so some of these middle-of-the-road schools, I mean, they're going to lose out. And my hope would be that they would go back. I do believe college athletes could get paid. I think there's a lot of work that needs to get done on this because you're talking about kids that essentially, if they weren't athletes, they would be working at Walmart for $12 or $15 an hour. Now, somebody's showing up with $1 million check. These kids are ill-equipped and ill-prepared at 18, 19 years old. I mean, there's so many things that they could do. First of all, they need to have money classes and bring the families in and teach these kids how to do this. And then maybe you create some kind of an annuity where you spread that money out over time. Yeah. Because, it's just, we're talking big money for some of these kids that have never had any. Their families have never had any.
Yeah, and I agree with your point, but how is it any different than what it was 2 years ago? It's always the rich get richer.
Well, it is.
The good kids are going to go to Alabama. They're not going to want to go to Vanderbilt. They're not going to go to it's just, it's not going to get any better. And I think all Saban was saying is what you said, that it's a problem. They got a big problem in college football.
Well, and I think years ago when they started talking about the college football playoff, he raised the question at that point: do you guys really want to do this? Because this is only going to benefit me.
Yeah.
He came out and said, then this is not going to be fair to the rest of you
Right.
because we'll probably get in the playoff every year.
Yeah.
And give us enough time to prepare, for the night.
And that's why it's been, the last 8 years is it 8 years they've had the playoff now or something like that? But
Yeah.
this is not going to change anything. That's my whole point.
It's not going to change anything, but to your point, Mike, it's going to be a situation where I think there's going to be a lot of train wrecks of kids coming out of college.
Yeah.
And by the way, they've been paid for a long, long time. My former accountant, Lover, changed because we had so many businesses. But my former accountant, her nephew, came out of North Cobb High School, went to Auburn. Okay, no names, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter now anyway, it's not a secret. But she told me that when he went to Auburn, that he was getting meal money, $1,700 a month.
I could eat off of that.
And he was getting another $1,700 on a debit card to do whatever he wanted with. He was going to, she said, we think by the time he graduates in 4 years, he'll have somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 in the bank.
Was he a starter?
And he'll have, no, he never started.
Wow.
The kid never started. It was just, he was their 85-man roster, full scholarship guy. And so, and I'm sure that's what it was for all of them. Now, some of the starters, the Cam Newtons of the world, maybe they got a big, sack of cash. I don't know.
Free shoes.
They did.
Free Shoes University.
Yeah.
James Winston. Yeah.
Whatever. It's just all kinds of stuff. So they've been getting paid for a long time. Heck, my son played baseball at Kennesaw State. They didn't get that much money. You only have 11.7 scholarships, which is still a pet peeve of mine. You spread 11.7 full scholarships amongst 32 guys.
And it's not much.
It's not much. But whenever they traveled, they got $30 a day.
Yep.
Per diem?
Per diem.
That's excluding the hotel.
And the coaches would go out, and if they were playing a doubleheader, or even if it was just, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they would go and get them sandwiches and Gatorades on it, so they didn't have to spend their meal money. So Zach would come back with almost $100 that he didn't have to spend, but it was his money.
Yeah.
But it was legal within the NCAA. And here's another thing.
Now, how is that different from NIL?
It's different because it didn't have anything to do with the name, image, and likeness. Although Zach could have made a bunch of money on his likeness because he looked a lot like me. So
I knew that was coming.
He was a good-looking guy. But so we're down playing Stetson, and
DeLand, Florida.
And the movie Soul Surfer came out. You guys remember that? Movie about the teenage surfer girl that got her arm bit off, and then she came back and learned to surf with one arm. Oh man, this is an inspirational movie. I came back and told the coach, I want to take everybody to the movie. We're down here, we have a 1 o'clock game, let's all go to the movie, I'll pay for it. He goes, can't do it. You would have to take the entire student body of KSU to the movie.
To qualify?
To qualify.
Wow.
I don't have 32,000 tickets.
Yeah.
But I got 32.
Yeah.
And that's where the NCAA, back to your point, is so dumb. You can't take a kid to dinner because he's your son's roommate. Or you can't take kids to a movie.
Yeah, I think the intent was good. They just didn't put enough meat on the bone. So the whole idea, I think, was we want to take the alumni behind the scenes giving out of it, and we'll just do, we'll come up with this NIL deal. And I get it. I mean, the reality is these kids make a ton of money for the university.
They do.
And it's part of the university's recruiting tools. My kids, I have a freshman in college. My daughter's going to be a senior next year. I'm getting recruiting material. If there's a postcard and there are 4 pictures on it, one of those pictures is a picture of, students at a football game. So the university is using athletes,
The college experience.
to make a ton of money. So I support it, but I think there needs to be a little bit more thought around it.
There has to be some type of structure.
Yeah.
And I've got a question that I'm going to get to after the break, but we're on it. And Brother Mike, we're going to give you a couple minutes to talk about your business and tell us what you're doing these days.
Well, in many ways, I I feel like I'm kind of similar to what you guys are trying to support. So I'm with True Men Life Coaching, and I have a podcast called the True Man Podcast. And my coaching is designed to help men, better dads, and better husbands. And so from time to time, a guy goes through whatever he goes through in life, and you just need somebody to walk alongside you and work with you and have some coaching and some accountability around whatever's going on in your life. And that's where I come into play. So I just come in and walk alongside a guy, and we've got a great coaching program that we can walk through together and help a guy gain clarity, peace, and understanding in their life. And there's no shame in that. In fact, there's a great deal of importance in realizing that, you don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers in my coaching, but together, two like-minded individuals can come together and work through a lot of things. And so David, if you'd like to be a client, there's some things that you need.
David already knows everything. He's already said that. So.
Well, yeah, I obviously do. But no, you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
That men don't open up as much. We don't have our boyfriends. Like our wives have their girlfriends that they can go talk to and they can get the emotions out. We don't talk about our struggles. We think we have to be, islands.
I talk to you about my struggles, don't I?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, but as a general rule, we don't. And I still think you need to get help. So,
that's real.
But we don't talk about our struggles, and we all struggle.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all struggle. I want to talk about your streaker gal, but that was before the show, folks.
Yeah,
maybe
we don't talk about streaking during the show.
Streaking is a sport, right?
It was in the '74. I know that.
It used to be.
Well,
so I applaud what you're doing. I think
amen.
As iron sharpens iron,
that's right.
Men can get together and they can help each other in times when they struggle.
That was the Promise Keepers thing. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of struggles, we're going to struggle to get back into sports. I have a question that I struggle with, Mike, and this is for you based on what you said.
Yeah.
I always thought that the scholarship was enough. I mean, there are people that now have college debt that they're going to have to be paying on for 20 years. Isn't a college scholarship enough to entice an athlete to not only go to a school, but to, by God, stay there and be entrenched in this school? What happened to the Beach Boys and be true to your school? I mean, that doesn't exist anymore.
No, but and it's a great question, and people bring this up all the time. But what they don't see is that a student athlete is not a regular student on campus. They do not have a regular student life. They don't see the fact that, for example, two-a-days. When I was in college, I had to open up the gym in the morning for the basketball team. It starts by turning the lights on at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so, what the average person doesn't see is, the guys showing up for morning workouts, and then having to turn around and go to class and do homework.
Well,
there's
study
halls.
You also have, you got to be in the gym. You got to get through your PT.
Yeah.
You got to do all that kind of stuff. You don't have a life of your own during the season, and not much out of season.
Yeah. Well, especially
you're a
now.
Employee.
Yeah, the rules have changed so much, and these kids are playing virtually all year round now. And I think that, so the average person doesn't see the level of work. These kids are basically giving up 4 years of what the average student gets
for an opportunity.
For an opportunity. And, most student athletes are very appreciative of that opportunity. And so the scholarship, in my opinion, it does what it's supposed to do. The problem is there's no discretionary income. So, if the average student has a job wherever they have a job and they're getting paid an hourly wage, they've got money to go get a pizza or, go out and have a hamburger or whatever. A student athlete doesn't have that.
So you talk about
opportunity.
within the scholarship, there's nothing to allow for that. That's right. What
No.
you're saying, right?
No, I mean it's what a scholarship takes care of is
Tuition, book, and room.
basically what all us parents are paying for,
Yeah.
to send our kids to school, to stay in the dorm, their books, and to attend class. And I think it's a fair trade-off, especially given the fact that a lot of most of these colleges and universities. The athletic program is attracting other students to the university. So I think it's a fair trade-off.
Does the university offer academic scholarships?
They do.
So those academicians, another good word.
Is he good or what?
I'm impressed.
So these academics, they come in. Can they have a job at Chick-fil-A?
Well, the answer to that is yes.
And they get paid,
Yeah.
so they have discretion. Because they don't have to go to study hall for their academics. They don't have to go work out in the weight room for their
Right.
academics. They don't have to be in team meetings to prepare for the game and academics. They could go. They have extra time in their schedule that the student athlete does not have.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, the student athlete's actually the most regulated person on campus.
So you're saying that the athletes
Getting drug tested.
don't have the
Yep.
cornucopia of options that the academician does.
Wow.
That was a stretch. Yeah. The student athlete.
Another good word, though.
The student athlete would eat the cornucopia.
That's true. Yeah.
It's a veritable cornucopia of options.
I would
That
fry
was
it.
cornucopia.
Yeah, I would fry it before I would eat it.
The cornucopia, yeah, it might make sense. So I see your point. I've always thought that, like when athletes used to have to play through their junior year, like in college basketball, they couldn't go pro until they played 3 years. That they ought to pay the school back for that 1 year. I mean, they didn't stick to their commitment of playing there. They ought to give the school back some money.
Well,
if they leave to make millions and millions of dollars like you would if you were that
So
good.
what's interesting about that is a college scholarship as an athlete, you're not guaranteed it. It's a year-to-year thing. So that's a kind of a little-known thing. I don't think a lot of people think about.
Depends on the
yeah.
coach.
So from an integrity standpoint, you're right. It's going to depend on the coach. But if a guy leaves, it's not like he took the scholarship with him. Now, a lot of coaches and schools will say, we want you to come back and finish your degree. In fact, didn't
Jerome Bettis
there's
just got a degree from Notre Dame over the weekend.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of student athletes.
Did he take
that
the
go
bus?
back. Yeah,
He is the bus.
he drove the bus to campus. Yeah.
He is the bus. So basically, what we're saying is between the NIL and scholarship, college sports is screwed up. They got to get something done and get something done right before they lose the NCAA, right?
Well, college sports has always been a little bit
Screwy.
messed up because the NCAA is involved and they never know their head from their toe most of the time. And I don't know that that's ever going to change. What you see happening is the expansion, and I was told from a former friend who was involved in collegiate athletics. He told me this probably goes back 10 years that what they projected was going to happen is you would have these major super conferences pop up, and sure enough, this is exactly
Got the 5.
Yeah, this is exactly what's happening because the larger the conference, if you take the Southeast Conference right now, they yield more power than any other conference in the country. They're making the most money. They get the best athletes,
Best TV deals and all that stuff.
And so they by far yield the most power in the they're becoming more powerful than the NCAA. I don't know that I want the conferences to have that kind of power, but the NCAA is going to have to step up here. They're going to have to fix some of these things, and the NIL. There's just so much money. TV deals are so big. The universities are making so much money. It's something that's drastically changed in the last 20, 25 years in sports, the amount of money being made. And it's how
does it get fixed?
I don't know what the answer is.
To me, the genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah.
At this point, it's tough to get the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
Well-
You start saying you're going to pay now. I don't want the NCAA to be involved in anything. I'd love it if everybody just went and blew up the building. Get everybody out first. No one needs to die,
Yeah.
but if they went to Kansas City and just blew up the building,
Yeah.
and got rid of I would love to see each individual conference police itself.
And that's
do it
kind of
that way.
is that kind of what we're talking to? Because we talked a little bit before over the weekend. Before the show about the NCAA has now said that you do not have to have division champions. You don't have to Coastal and Atlantic. Is that what it is in the ACC? In the East and West in the SEC, right? So now I know the Pac-12 within minutes jumped on and said, okay, we're not going to have conferences anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to reward the best two team, the team with the highest winning percentage, and they're going to play the conference championship.
Even if they played each other and one team lost.
And if they play each other, one team lost.
Yeah.
If they both wind up with one loss, and they're the only one-loss teams, they're going to go play in the
but see,
championship.
even that shows the craziness of college athletics, unfortunately. Now, I love seeing the championship game, but stop and think about that. They're playing the championship game in that case for money. Because somebody's already won the conference, right? There's a number two, there's a number one, there's a number two seed. So they're playing for money. What's at risk? Let's say you lose your, number one rated NFL quarterback to injury in the championship game, and now you can't go to the playoff.
Just like backing out of bowl games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see more kids do that. I mean, as we continue to do. I'm not a big fan of that, by the way.
I
but
hate
that's-
that, by the
By
way.
the way, that's another reason, that most people get for expanding the playoff is that you'll have more kids who will stay and play their first round if they win their second round to try and get to
A better
the
bowl
the
game.
Final Four.
Yeah.
To get deeper into the playoffs because they'll
Yeah.
get more TV time, more exposure, maybe lift their draft status. Kids
I don't like it.
Kids are not going and playing bowl games, some toilet bowl, because they don't want
Right.
to get hurt, and they're thinking, I'm doing this for a career.
Yeah.
I've spent the last 3 years of my life or 4 years of my life killing myself so I can get a job in the NFL.
Well, this gets back to what Bud Grant said over the weekend. You remember Bud Grant?
Yeah.
He used to be a coach for the Vikings.
He used to be the coach for them.
Yeah, 90. What did I say?
Yeah, a coach.
Oh, well, he was a coach.
He
They have
was.
a bunch of coaches.
Yeah.
The head coach for many years. But he said football players are wusses now, basically. He said he hates fair catch. He thinks it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. He said, if you'll kick the ball in the end zone, just give them the damn ball. Don't make them kick it. I said, line them up, kick off from the 15, kick off the 25. Make it part of the game again. He said,
They're trying to avoid injury. This whole
Of course they are.
This whole targeting thing has gotten so out of hand.
it's totally out of hand.
You come in, head up, and the guy in front of you lowers his head. The guy with the ball lowers his head. He's creating high contact with his helmet. Why aren't offensive guys getting thrown out?
That's why
Because it's a
targeting's got to go away.
Because it's a protective measure. I mean, I played football. It's a protective thing to lower your head when you're about to hit somebody.
Yeah.
It might not be smart, but it's natural.
But it's been that way for decades. And I agree with Bud Grant. I'm an old school guy. I mean, the players are
is,
bigger.
It goes back to money.
Yeah, it goes back to money.
It goes back
And
to
so
money.
the thing of it is that, Bud Grant is probably not necessarily wrong, but the difference is the guys that played for Bud Grant were making
$10,000 a
yeah,
year.
$10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Now these guys are making $10,000 a play.
But let's say when
And-
Bud Grant was paying, when they were paying $10,000 a year, that was a lot of money. I mean, comparatively, it's not as much as it is now.
It wasn't a lot of money. If you read Fran Tarkenton's book, he wrote a book called Failing Forward.
Yep.
Well, number one, I can't believe Fran Tarkenton. Right, he went to Georgia.
He's right. And he's an entrepreneur.
He did pretty good for
Yeah, he did
He
okay.
pretty
for
well.
him.
He's still in the top 10 in every category as NFL quarterback.
Yeah. Move on.
So, what was the Georgia Tech quarterback who was in the top 10 in anything? Except for Megatron.
Joe Hamilton led in DUIs.
He was the best quarterback Georgia ever had.
No, that was Reggie Ball. That was a different story.
Okay, so Joe Hamilton was second.
Yeah.
But, Fran Tarkenton drove a truck in the offseason.
Oh yeah.
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 I mean, he had to drive a truck. Then he went selling insurance in the offseason. They weren't making enough money. to where they could not have to work in the off season.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a ton of money back then.
Yeah.
TV wasn't really coming in. It was just starting to come in the 60s. He was a first draft pick Minnesota had in 1961.
Yeah. Last show we had was about Monday Night Football. We talked about Monday Night Football and how it used to mean something.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything anymore. It's one of.
Because it's 2 games on Monday night, and then there's.
It's not
Thursday
Dandy
night
Don.
football and-
It's not Dandy Don and Frank and Howard Cosell. I mean, that was an
It
event,
really all
and
comes
everybody
back.
wanted to
Everything
watch.
comes back to money.
It
Protecting
does.
players comes back to money. Getting to the bowl game comes back to money. You don't want to get guys get hurt. It's almost like quarterbacks now are going to start wearing red jerseys. Can't hit them.
Yeah, 7-on-7 football is what it's going to
Kind of what
become,
it's turning into is flag football.
and it's no fun. That's not what football is
but it
intended
all
to be.
comes down to protecting
Yeah.
the franchise players, even in college. Even in
And
college.
then it's going to be high school, and then it's going to be Pee Wee. I mean, where does it stop?
Yeah, pretty soon we're going to have NIL deals in high school. I don't
Yeah.
see how they can stop it.
I don't either.
If you can work at Chick-fil-A
Well,
when you're 15, you can get an NIL deal when you're 15. If you
okay.
can model when you're 15.
To your
Yeah,
point,
model
I've
player.
said this for years. So when I was
I've
a
known
kid,
you for about 15
yeah,
minutes. So
well, I
forgive
know.
me.
Okay, so sorry. So, so the Little League World Series. Do you remember when the Little League World Series was on television and it was just the championship game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we all thought it was cute and everything.
Yeah.
Now
It's
ESPN's coverage has
it's the
expanded.
international
Yeah,
games, and
it's
it's,
expanded to the regional play.
Yeah.
And my thing
I'm
is,
so sick of it by the time you get to the championship.
well, by the time,
Exactly.
yeah. So, but here's the deal: if ESPN is going to cover it, and your kid's going to be on television, shouldn't they get paid? Because ESPN is making
Making
X
money
amount
off of
of
that.
money on it.
That's right.
And so, why shouldn't your kid? I mean, if a Major League Baseball player is getting paid to be on television, why shouldn't your kid get paid to be
That's
on
my
television?
point.
Okay, let's
well-
create a business plan for that, and we'll go do that.
And we're going to continue this discussion.
We
but-
could become agents for
We
Little
could.
Leaguers.
But speaking of raising money, the organization that we help is helping one guy, and their motto is to do for one what you wish you could do for all. And David's going to read us a little story about the gentleman who they are honoring in the month of June, and we will do this today in lieu of Steve calling in to give us Pearson's points. David, if you would.
Yeah, so I'm going to read a story, and this is I think this is all too common. And again, this thing we went back to earlier about men not wanting to talk about their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Well, this is a situation where you have a man who can't do anything because his body's not cooperating. So here's the story, and then if you want to give to this, then Chuck will give you the details on that. But so this is about Ricky McDonald. He grew up in Marietta, owns a local home inspection business. I'm in the real estate business, so that resonates with me. He's married. His wife's name is Angie. She's a math teacher at Walton High School. He has 2 daughters who are 7 and 5, Hannah and Taylor. They live in East Cobb. So in January of 2018, we almost lost Ricky. No one even knew he had ulcers. Man was never complained about a thing. Most men don't, do they? We just power through it, rub some dirt on it.
Yep.
Let's keep going. So by the time he got to the emergency room, he had lost 8 units of blood. Because that's a lot. They take 4 units of blood. When you go and there's a unit of blood when you go to Red Cross.
You only have like 12 in your body, I
He
think.
lost 8 units of blood. Kidneys and liver had started shutting down. His damage to his liver was irreversible. So he had cirrhosis of the liver, but it wasn't from drinking. It was from disease. So he's followed every recommendation by his doctors. Liver disease keeps getting worse. So now he has to get a transplant. So in December, Ricky and Angie, that was time to start preparing for that. In January, he was evaluated for the liver transplant, was told he would likely get his transplant in a matter of days or weeks. Well, then he gets a fever, which many times happens. He gets an infection, and he spends 35 days in the hospital fighting for his life, which means no liver transplant, right? Days and weeks turns into, okay, now you're kind of moved back on the list, which is the last thing they wanted to hear. And you guys, when things like this happen, your insurance only goes so far.
Yeah.
The expenses for 35 days in intensive care in the hospital they're
More than most
obscene.
people's mortgages.
Well, they're obscene, you know, and I've had this happen to me back when my wife was so ill. You know, she was going back and forth to intensive care a lot, and so you find yourself under a mountain of medical debt, and so he's now still waiting his transplant, which will be additional expense. But this is a man who needs our help.
Yeah.
You know, his family needs our help.
And our prayers.
And a lot of times, and that's a great point, because you know, all of us as men, we think about how to use our time, don't we? You guys, it's kind of, I believe now that the best use of my time is time talking to God, you know, talking to Christ. You know, and just say, okay, Lord, who is it today? You know, what do you want from me today? What are you trying to teach me today? And who can I help today? So prayer is very important. Use of our time is very important, but also use of our resources. Guys, $10, $15, $20, you know, it doesn't matter. Any little bit helps. If a lot of people do it, then it turns into a big thing. But pray, you know, for the McDonald family. You know, pray for Ricky. Pray for his wife. It is hard on the spouse to go through something like this. So, you know, pray for this family.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. And I want to reiterate that the stories like this are why this show exists.
Yep.
I have a friend that's got prostate cancer, and he's going through some of the same issues. Fortunately for him, his is not a financial issue. His is all mental, and it wears on his family, and just like it is. And David said, this is not the only situation like this. And these helpingoneguy.org is where you need to go to help donate to Ricky and his family, helpingoneguy.org. So that's why this show exists, to help people get through a difficult time. And as much fun as we have up here, and as unknowledgeable as we are about sports, it might take somebody's mind off of what they're going through for an hour, and that's why we do this show.
I'm sure that anybody who watches this show yells at us all the time going, you guys have no clue what you're talking about, and you're right.
And that's okay, because we would like you to be on the show.
Yeah.
If it's something that you feel you have a strong opinion about, you can text us at 470-7-SPORTS and say, I'd love to be on the show. Cost you $100, and $75 of that will go to helping one guy.
And then we can yell at you.
Yeah, and then we'll sit at home and yell at you too. Actually, I'll be here, but somebody will sit at home and yell at you. So we'll get back into the sports for a few minutes, and then we'll call it a wrap. But some interesting stuff we went through today.
I mean, we didn't solve anything, and I don't think anything gets solved.
Well, I don't think we can solve anything.
But you know, they're I think more about when we talk about sports, we talk about NIL and the money coming in, and you guys ever heard the statistics on lottery winners?
No.
Yeah, so you look at lottery winners over the last 50 years. You know, and you guys know that 95% of all statistics are made up. So,
especially that one.
right. So, but the vast majority of lottery winners, 5 years after they won the lottery, are bankrupt
Yeah.
because they don't know how to handle their money.
Yeah.
You've got kids coming out of high school who get $1 million deal to be the backup quarterback at Alabama.
It's a lottery ticket.
It's a
It's a lottery
Yeah.
ticket.
And how many of these kids, and by the way, I'm old enough now to know, you get a lot of money in your hand, you don't make wise decisions.
Yeah.
No, that might not be life-altering, not life-killing decisions, but you don't make the best decision because you think, oh, I can do anything. I'll take a risk on that business, or I'll buy that car or that house or that whatever.
Yeah.
You make decisions that aren't as prudent as you would if you really had to count your nickels. You know, so I think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of damage done from NIL to the kids.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I wouldn't mind actually seeing them implement kind of a life skills class. If you get an NIL deal, make them take
a class.
semester class where you teach them about money, life insurance.
You could teach that.
annuities. Well, I'm not interested in going back on campus, but the point is that, you know, they don't have this.
We could bring our financial planners in and say,
Yeah.
let me handle your money.
Yeah.
Well, let's get away from the financial part of it for just a second as we wrapped up the show. as we said earlier, the divisions, the conferences now can set up their own divisions to who can play in the conference championships. And one of the things the ACC is looking at is it's called a 3-5-5, where each team will play 3 teams every year, and then the other 10 will be alternated every other year. So you'll play 5 teams one year and the other 5 the next year, but you always play the 3.
The 3 biggest rivals, basically.
Yeah, probably your 3 biggest rivals, and then your games like when Georgia plays Tennessee School of the Blind or South Carolina MPT Tech or something like that.
Or when we play Tech, Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Or yes, yeah. So we brought up something interesting before the show started. Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas are now going to be a part of the SEC as of 24. Or is it 25?
Nobody knows.
I think it's 23, actually. I think it's moving.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. So where are Texas and Oklahoma going? I think you move Alabama and Auburn to the east, which means Georgia will never win the East again. And then you move Texas and Oklahoma into the west, and then geographically it all makes sense.
I can't, my memory is failing, but didn't Georgia win the whole national championship last year? Didn't they beat Alabama?
Yeah, I'm not talking history. I'm talking future.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
they've proven they can do it. So,
Yeah, but they're not in the same conference with Alabama, not in the same division. If they were in the same division and had to play them every year,
But Alabama would have to play Georgia every year.
no, Georgia would have to play Alabama. See what we go through here, Mike? It's brutal. It's brutal.
See, that's one reason Alabama's not going to want to come do that. That's never happened.
I don't think that's an issue for Saban. I think it's an issue for Georgia
Lord
fans.
Saban will never let that happen.
Lord Saban.
Lord Saban.
Oh, Lord Saban. I think
Yeah.
I said Lord Saban.
No,
Okay.
Lord Saban
Yeah,
will
Lord
never let that
Saban. I don't know. We'll see. I kind of like the 3-5-5 rule. I like the idea. I didn't think Pittsburgh ought to play for the ACC championship last year. They were an average football team, and
With an above-average quarterback.
with an above-average quarterback. And I just didn't think there was that much talent. There might not have been 2 good teams in the ACC last year. But I think I like that rule of the 2 with the highest winning percentage getting in. But there's always going to be the same, because they're talking about, it's going to say a 14 playoff now through what, 26? Is that what they said, or 25?
25.
Through 25. Hey, Larry, the engineer, chimes in for us. Thank you, Larry. And I wish it would stay that way, because if they go to 6, it's going to be, well, the 7th team should have got in. If they go to 8, it's going to be, well, the 9th team should have got in. And there's no end to it. And you keep playing, keep playing, keep playing. I hate the money. I hate the transfer portal. I hate what college football has become. I love the game. I miss Keith Jackson. I wish he would call one game on Saturdays and that would be done. Media has ruined college football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Mr. Mike?
Wow, you just covered a lot of ground there in a
really
real
did.
big hurry, but I agree with you. I miss Keith Jackson.
That's it. That's where. Nothing else I agree. No, not that. Nothing else I agree with, but I do miss Keith Jackson.
Hey, transfer portal needs to be turned off as soon as you enter the season.
I don't have a problem with transfer, but if you have to sit out a year, that's fine, and you get one transfer, period.
Yeah,
And then
to
I'd
me,
be happy
transfer
with that.
play immediately, but you get one.
Yeah.
But you turn it off as soon as the season starts. Right now, you can go to the transfer portal whenever you want.
Listen, I personally don't like anything that sounds like a ride at an amusement park. That's what the problem
transfer
is
portal.
right off the bat.
Get in line for the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the transfer portal. A plug for North Cobb Rotary. So the Kennesaw State volleyball, women's volleyball coach was there, and his thoughts on it were, I'm not taking anybody out of the transfer portal. And by the way, I've never had anybody leave my team to jump in it. And if you're trying to build a culture, if you're trying to build a program, the whole one and done thing, that I just think it's sloppy business. You can't build a culture and have folks coming and going all the time.
Well, to me, that's the NCAA, and that is the professional sports problem.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
that
watered down to college.
That in baseball and in football, you have to be have gotten through your junior season or be 21 years old.
Yeah.
But in basketball, you can play 1 year or come right out of high school.
Yeah. There's got to be some
Yeah,
consistency.
it's like a free agent system in college sports.
And I will
That needs
say,
to be more consistent.
I will have the final word because I say I'm going to have the final word and we'll get out of here. Perfect example of what this is. Murray State. God bless the Racers. Murray State, which where Steve went to school. Don't be giving me Murray State. So they have a basketball team. Their coach went to LSU. The next day, they had one player left on their roster, a walk-on. And that's all they had. And there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that where one day you have a full basketball team and the next day you have one player because their coach left or they're not happy or they want more money. Be true to your school. Okay, Scott. Go ahead, Mike. That's what I was calling him, Scott Van Pelt. No, Mike, go ahead.
Last word.
No, Mike. If you feel like you must say it, go ahead.
I was just going to say what's interesting about that was he took a job at LSU where all his players left. So, you see it just all this one thing leads to another. It's just a complete domino.
The Fix.
effect.
That's a great song.
That was a great song.
That was a great song. All right, guys. Hey, David, Mike, thanks for being with us today. Guys, don't forget to protect yourselves, know your numbers, cover your ass, get your prostate checked. See you next week.
Amen.
That was fun.
That was fun. Good job, man.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, Mr. Podcast, what's your thoughts on that?
On what?
On the show
What we
overall?
did?
Yeah.
Well, hell, it's just fun.